I did not know there was an intro video. That surprised me. So, hey, how we doing tonight? Awesome. My name is Adair. It is a pleasure to be with you guys again. How many of you have been here any of the last times that I've spoken? Great, you came back. Thank you. Highly appreciate it. If this is your first time to hang out with me or my first time to hang out with you, I am a planting pastor in Celina, Texas. My family is planting Real Life Church in Celina, and so as Rock Creek was a church plant 13 years ago, almost 14 now, we are in like month number 7, so we're in the middle of that. But I have the privilege of hanging out with y'all. David invites me every once in a while, and I love it. And so I'm glad to be with you guys tonight. And tonight we are, I think we're closing it out. I think I'm the last of the spiritual warfare conversation, right? Does anyone know? No one knows. Okay, awesome. So we're just going to wing it. But regardless of where I fall kind of in this series, number one, are y'all enjoying this? Like, has this been good? How many of y'all want to admit that this is also a little bit weird? Anybody? Like spiritual warfare can get a little strange. Tonight I have good news for you that I get completely like overwhelmed whenever I start thinking about the concept of spiritual warfare, because we are created as human beings, and that being said, we're finite, meaning we don't know it all, right? I know that all of you are teenagers in this room, and you currently have life figured out. I get it, all right? I wish I could be as cool as you, but I have grown old and now realize that I'm actually really dumb, like really dumb. I still make dumb decisions and I do dumb stuff, and my wife will every once in a while remind me that, Stephen, we could do better than that. She's normally right. Tonight, I do not intend on giving you all of the answers to all of life's problems. I wish that I could, but the reality is I don't know the answer all of the time. And in a conversation like this one, it's a struggle. Tonight, I want you to first understand something, that we as people, we may not be able to completely understand all of the things that happen in the spiritual world, but I want to tell you first and foremost tonight that the spiritual world is very, very, very real, and you live within the middle of it, whether you recognize it or not. I truly believe that all around us, there is a world at work for us and against us. And as you get older, you kind of start to see some of these things play out. But don't miss this fact that you currently live 5 days out of the week in one of the greatest conflict zones of this war that we're in. It's called your schools. Like, school feels like a war zone, does it not? Like, you show up, like we got some preachers up front. Like you show up to school and I don't know, first day of school for me was always a fun day. Like there for a while, I would always dress to impress on the first day of school. Like, how many of y'all still dress up the first day of school? You can be honest, like, some of you do, right? Some of you dress up for the first day of school. How many seniors in the room wore sweatpants? Right? There you are. Like by senior year in high school, I was like, no, man, this is my give up outfit. Like, I'm just phoning it in. Like, I just got to get to the finish line. Because there comes a point where you realize, like, man, this is just hard. Like, life is just hard. Kids are mean. They say mean things. I'm not going to win. Like, I'm not going to be good enough. I'm not going to be popular enough. And we get to this place where we just feel like, it's a sweatpant day. Like, we're just going to kind of phone it in. That is the conflict that you guys live within. This reality and this difficulty of who am I going to be in this moment? What do I seek to accomplish, and what do I want to achieve? And I feel like in school, for me at least, I had to make that decision almost every single day. What kind of kid do I want to be today? What kind of impression do I want to make today? I was a kid who was constantly pursuing identity all the time because I wasn't really sure who I was or what I wanted to be. And so I let a lot of other people tell me what I was and what I was going to be. And what I quickly realized was that, man, if I allow other people to tell me who I am, if I allow other people to identify me or tell me what I'm gonna be about or what I'm going to become, then I just feel empty. I don't get to do what I want to do because I'm too busy trying to satisfy everybody else. Let me tell you that is the warfare that you live within. It's these voices. It's these people, it's these emotions that pick at you, that slowly eat at you, that try to tell you that you're not good enough, that you're not pretty enough, that you're not strong enough, that you're not rich enough. It's these voices in you and around you that slowly erode at who you actually are. You are a child of God. But the world around you wants to tell you that you are worthless, that you're junk, that you're broken, and that there is no hope for your repair. But God says otherwise. God says that even though you are still a sinner, I will send my son to die for you. That even though you are broken, I still love you. That I want to use your mess to expand my message. That I want you to be an heir to a kingdom that is beyond you. That's what God desires for you. In the middle of this conflict, in the middle of this war, there's a part of you tonight, as you sit in this room, that is of God. You see, the Bible is this really interesting story that starts from nothing into something. It's called the creation story. Most of y'all grew up learning about this like every other weekend at Sunday school, right? Like God creates the world in how many days? 7. Some of you are awake. That's wonderful. 7 days, God creates the world. Really, he creates it in 6, and then he takes a nap, but 7 days in total. But whenever he gets, in everything that he makes from day 1 through 5, he does something. He creates, and he just uses his hands. Or he just speaks it into existence. For light, God just says, let there be light, and boom, there was light. And then God says, let there be land, there's land. Let there be water, there's water. Let there be skies, there's skies. Let there be, let there be, let there be. And as he speaks, stuff just happens until he gets to man. And when he gets to man, he actually creates man differently. He doesn't just speak and there is Adam. No, he makes him from the dust of the ground. He forms him. He makes him. But Adam doesn't live yet. You see, mankind is the one part of creation that needed something. More than just being spoken into existence, we are first made, and then the Bible says that God breathed into Adam. Breath. The breath of God is what lives within every man, woman, and child. You were not just spoken, you were crafted. You are special and you have purpose. But breath, specifically all throughout the Old Testament, every time that we have this Hebrew word for breath, it's oftentimes could be translated over into spirit. For the Spirit of God lives within man. Tonight there's a part of you that is of God. And it's that part of you, that piece of you that is of God, that is breathed into you by God, that longs, that desires to be connected to the one that put it there. This part of you desires to be connected to God. This part of you desires to be close to God. Why? Because it is of God. It wants to be back to where it started. There's a part of you that is longing to be connected to your Creator. Now, I don't know about you, but that blows my mind. That there's a piece of me, inside of me, that is of the same person who created me, who breathed into me and gave me life. That piece of us is spiritual. It's different from anything else about you. You're the only living creature on the planet that holds a soul, that has the Spirit within you. And those that you sit next to, they have it too. This is one of the largest, the thing that just really irks me, just gets on my nerve, is the way that we treat other people sometimes really bothers me. The names that we call them, or the way that we'll treat them, the way that we even look at people. Like, we look at people like they're not worthy. We look at people like they're not good enough, that they're not popular enough, that they don't meet my criteria of what makes a good or popular or strong or valuable person. That we can look at somebody and we can just instantly cast judgment upon them because they don't meet some checklist that you've created. And man, it tears me up, because in doing so, we're criticizing God. Like, you might not think of it that way, but that's what you're doing. Every time you look at somebody in hate, every time that you look at somebody with disgust, you're looking at a God creature and you're saying, not good, not good. Based on your list. But you see, when God creates man, he says something about him. Woman too, Eve. Eve has a different story. She's created from a part of Adam. Adam actually names Eve whenever he sees her for the first time. He goes, "Whoa, man." And that's how she got her name. That was a good preacher joke. Some of y'all thought it was funny, and some of y'all are too cool for me, and that's fine. You don't get it because she was hot. Like, Adam saw her and was like, "Whoa, man." Like, all right, next time. We'll try again next time. But God looks at man and says, well, this isn't just good. He says, now this is very good. This creature is something special. This creature is something to die for. Very good. That is the people that you sit with tonight. And the reason I want to call that out is because as we talk about the story we're going to get to, before it has any meaning or any value, you first need to value each other. That's where it starts. Because I don't know what anybody else talked about in this series. I have no clue. But what I do know is if you're talking about spiritual issues, if you're talking about godly issues, then you're talking about the very people who hold the Spirit of God, and they're sitting in this room tonight. We first have to value each other. The enemy will always win if we're already defeating each other. If Christians are already criticizing Christians, then what hope do you have? Satan's already won that battle. He doesn't even have to do anything because you're doing it for him. How's that going to work out, y'all? How do we win a battle where we're too busy fighting ourselves? How do we step up in the face of conflict when we're too busy judging each other? When we look at other people and go, well, I mean, they say they're Christian, but I know where they were Friday night. Yeah, you know where they were Friday night because you were there too. Or you're jealous because you didn't get invited. Yeah, we can play this game. We can beat you up and down. That's fine. But what's it do for us? It just fractures the kingdom. So before we can talk about spiritual things, you first need to understand that you got to be in this fight together, or I'm telling you right now, you're not going to win. You're just not going to win. If you try to face the spiritual world by yourself, you will be defeated every single time because Satan has a really good tactic to beat you, and he'll use your own mind to destroy yourself. He'll constantly remind you that you're not good enough. He'll remind you of all the things that you did Friday night and tell you that, you know what, you might as well not even go to church on Sunday because after all, you're just a hypocrite and who really wants to sit next to you? That's the way that it works. And you'll allow other people to not show up to this place on Wednesday nights, and you won't even think to call them. Why? Because you're too concerned about yourself. You're too worried about the people that you're sitting with right now to care about the people who actually aren't here with you as well. You got to be in this fight together. I'm going to give you a secret tonight. It's not really a secret. It's just a reality that you have at your disposal to fight with. It's a tool that God has granted you. He's given you this incredible ability, and I want you to be able to access it. If you'll open up your Bibles to Mark chapter 9, that's where we're going to be. If you don't have a Bible, get one. Put it on your phone. It's going to be on the screen, I think. We might have it on the screen, we might not. We'll find out here in a moment. Mark chapter 9. I'm going to start in verse 14. When they returned to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd surrounding them, and some teachers of religious law were arguing with them. Verse 15. When the crowd saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with awe, and they ran to greet him. What is all this arguing about? Jesus asked. One of the men in the crowd spoke up and said, "Teacher, I brought my son so you could heal him. He is possessed by an evil spirit that won't let him talk. And whenever this spirit seizes him, it throws him violently to the ground. Then he foams at the mouth and grinds his teeth and becomes rigid. So I asked your disciples to cast out the evil spirit, but they couldn't do it." I want to stop right there. I want you to recognize who recognizes the evil spirit. This dad. It's the dad who calls out the evil spirit, not Jesus. Jesus comes into the conversation. He's like, "What's going on? What are we arguing about?" Mind you, Jesus is God. He knows exactly what's happening. But he asks, because he always asks good questions. And this dad basically is like, "There's something wrong with my boy. There's an attack on my boy. I know what it is, but I can't do anything about it." And he's frustrated with the disciples. Now, I really like the disciples. I think they're pretty good guys. One of them was a little sketchy there at the end, but overall, pretty good guys. I like Peter. Peter's one of my favorite because he carried a sword around and he cut a dude's ear off. I mean, come on. That is fantastic. Jesus just picks it back up and puts it on his face. It's great. I love that. It'd be better if Peter would have cut the guy's head off and then Jesus picks up the head and puts it back on the guy's body. That would have made a good story. I like this story because the disciples can't. They can't do it. How many of y'all have been asked to do something that you can't do? Anybody? Some of you are like, "Nah, I can do all things in Christ who gives me strength." You Jesus-loving people up in here. There's some times that I'm asked to do something and I can't do it. I'm asked to fix things that I can't fix. I'm asked to solve problems that I can't solve because I'm just not the world's smartest man. There's some times that I can't do stuff. The disciples, I like the disciples. Because as a pastor, I sometimes feel like I have to do everything. Like I have to have all the right answers. Like people will come to my church for me to tell them, to reveal to them the story of the gospel, the truth of the message of Christ. And there's some days where I do it pretty well. There's other days that I'm like, well, that was a flop. Like I hope they give me another chance, right? Like there's sometimes I just feel like I don't do the job well, and that happens. And I love the fact that it happened to the disciples too. Because it reminds me that I'm not alone. Like some of you think that you need to have this Christian thing figured out. You need to have this Jesus thing down pat. Like here's the reality is no, you just need to know Jesus and he'll take care of the rest. Like that's what he asked for. Jesus says, "Just believe in me and I got you." On the cross, he puts it this way, "It is finished." That's what Jesus says with his dying breath. If Jesus says it's finished, then what more is there for you to do other than believe? Believe in me and you will have eternal life. Jesus says that in this world you will have many trials, but take heart, for I have overcome the world. Believe in Jesus and you will find victory. The disciples failed and you will too. And I want you to know tonight that it's okay. God can handle your failures because he will never fail you. So Jesus says to them, he looks out over the crowd, verse 19, Jesus says to them, "You faithless people," he's really frustrated with the disciples here. "You faithless people, how long must I be with you? How long must I put up with you? Bring me the boy." So they brought the boy. But when the evil spirit saw Jesus, it threw the child into a violent convulsion, and he fell to the ground, writhing and foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked, "How long has this been happening?" The man's father replied, "Since he was a little boy. The Spirit often throws him into the fire or into water, trying to kill him. Have mercy on us and help us if you can." If you can. This man is talking to the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the one who breathed the very life into his own body and into his child's body. This man is talking face to face with God himself. And the way that he approaches this conversation is, "Hey, Jesus, if you could do something about this, will you do something about this?" I want to judge this dad so hard right now. I want to just slap him and be like, "What are you doing? Well, you're talking to Jesus. The dude who can walk on water, the dude who can turn a couple of fish and bread into thousands. Like, this guy is capable of doing anything and everything. And you just looked at him right in his face and said, if you could do this, I mean, that would really be great. If you could." How many of you sometimes feel like God's forgotten about you? It's okay. You could be honest. You know, there's days that I doubt. I know. But you're a Christian. Yeah, that's true. You're a pastor. Yeah, also true. You preach sermons to crowds. You can't doubt. Well, I do. And if that makes me unqualified to stand up here, then so be it. But there are days that I doubt, because there are days that I see the world in complete and total destruction, and I wonder, where in the world is God? There are days that I see wars and conflicts and famines going on all over the place, and I think to myself, where is God? There are days that I sit in my room at night and pray, and I say, "God, if you could stop this, we would really appreciate it." And I find myself going, "If you can, if you could, if you will." And Jesus looks at this guy square in the face, and he says, if I can? Like, that's really what you're going to go with right now? Look at the next verse. Look at the next verse. Verse 23. What do you mean, if I can? Do you know who I am? Like, I didn't come to you, dude. You came to me. And now you're coming into this place, and you're going to stand before me and say, if you can help out. A little bit of doubt. But I want you to notice what happens. I want you to notice that Jesus might give him a hard time for a moment, but Jesus is still Jesus, and he is good. God's big enough to handle your doubts. He really is a big boy. He doesn't need your affirmations to know that he is God. He doesn't need you to be like, "Attaboy, God, you're doing great." He knows. He doesn't need your participation awards. He doesn't need your trophies. God knows that he is God, and what he would like for you is to know the same. To be confident in that. To have a bold faith that can look to God and say, "God, I need you now." Don't ask if. I also want to encourage you tonight to not say no on God's behalf. Here's what I mean by that. I think that some of you will not ask God for things because you automatically assume that God doesn't want you to have it. Like, I'm not talking about like a Ferrari, okay? Like, I don't know if praying for a Ferrari is going to work. You can try. I'm not saying you can't, all right? I'm just saying that if that prayer doesn't get answered, I mean, don't hold that one against God. But some of you won't pray for God to intervene in your friendships. Because you're like, but if I only have 2 friends. And if God gets, it's not me. Like, I have more than 2, right? Like, I have a wife and 3 kids. I hope that like at least 4, right? I have 4 friends. That they are my kids, so I guess they're forced to be my friend. Is that what you're saying? Like, you will love me, right? I feel I feel like some of us don't ask God for things because we just automatically assume that, like, I'm not even going to share some of my prayer requests because y'all will just laugh at me and think that I'm an idiot. But like y'all don't, you mean to tell me that y'all don't like, okay. All right, okay, judgment-free zone. So a couple of months ago, I was on vacation. Okay, a couple months ago, I was on vacation. Last day, I was at the beach. I love the beach. We were at Gulf Shores, Alabama. Anybody been there? Beautiful place. Yeah, Gulf Shores is great. I'm at Gulf Shores, Alabama, and it's my last day. It's my last day to be on the beach, and I just wasn't ready for it to be over. And so y'all know? Did y'all know that in the Bible there's a story about God stops the sun from going down so that a battle can go on for longer? He literally makes the sun stand still. Did y'all know that was in the Bible? No. Okay, that's in the Bible. And so being a preacher and all, knowing so much about God and have this great wealth of knowledge about God, I know what God can do. And I know that this is my last day on the beach, and I know that I would like to be on the beach a little bit longer. And so what if I prayed that God would just halt the sun so that my beach day could last a little longer? What if I prayed that? Like, is that the worst prayer to pray? No. Like, I don't think so. I think that's a good, I remember laying in my lounge chair, kicking back, thinking to myself, I'm not ready for this day to end. And so just in my lounge chair, I was like, hey, God, I know you've done it before. I know you could do it again. You've never failed me yet. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm like, if you could just hold the sun, right where it's at.
Why did you say it?
That's a good question, but I probably did.
Why?
Hey, God, just hold the sun right there where it's at. That's a prayer, right? I mean, why not ask? What if God did it? Then y'all would be like, oh, I remember that day because I was at baseball practice and it was supposed to be done, but the sun wasn't going down, so coach just thought his watch was broken. So we had to practice for an hour and a half more. If God were to hold the sun still, y'all would have known about it. That would have been because of me. So that I could have more beach time. They're silly prayers, but what I'm saying is it doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. And you can apply that. That was a funny, facetious conversation that I had with God, but y'all could use that in real life. Do you know why? Because prayer is powerful. And that's what tonight's all about. Is you have something at your fingertips that God has given you that I think you completely underestimate what it's capable of. Because check this out. What do you mean, if I can? Verse 23, Jesus asked. For anything is possible if a person believes. And the Father instantly cried out. This is one of my favorite verses in all of Scripture. It's kind of an anthem of mine. I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief. It's kind of this really open moment of yes, God, I really do believe in you. I know that you're the creator and sustainer of all things. I know that you are Jehovah Jireh. I know that you're the great provider. I know all of this stuff about you. I know that I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. I know that anything is possible to those who believe. I know all of these things, yet sometimes I feel like I just can't. Will you help me in my unbelief? And when Jesus saw that the crowd of onlookers was growing, he rebuked the evil spirit. Listen, you spirit that makes this boy unable to hear and speak, he said. I command you to come out of this child and never enter him again. Then the evil spirit screamed and threw the boy into a violent convulsion and left him. And the boy appeared to be dead. A murmur ran through the crowd as people said, he's dead. But Jesus took him by the hand and helped him to his feet, and he stood up. Afterward, when Jesus was alone in the house with his disciples, they asked him. Remember, the disciples tried to throw out this spirit, and they couldn't. And then they just watched Jesus do it, and they want to know, whoa, hold, wait up, what happened here? Why could you do it, but we couldn't do it? Now, the simple answer would probably just be, well, because I'm God and you're not. That's probably the easier option. But that's not what he says. He says, afterwards, when Jesus was alone in the house with the disciples, they asked him, why couldn't we cast out that evil spirit? And Jesus replied, this kind can be cast out only by prayer. Anybody know what this is? Wasn't a trick question. It really is a tape measure. So while I am a pastor and while I'm planting a church, I am also a project manager. Basically what that means is I build buildings. I oversee buildings from start to finish. Somebody shows up in my office, they have a set of plans on paper. They say, hey, Stephen, the company that I work for, Littlewood and Penguin, they say, hey, we would like for you guys to build this building. Cheyenne's in the house right there. Cheyenne, wave everybody. Okay, Cheyenne manages Summer Moon Coffee in Celina, Texas. I built Summer Moon Coffee in Celina, Texas. Me, all by myself. Me and my hammer. Not really. Because you know what? While I can build buildings, I don't know how to do everything. I'm not a good electrician. My plumbing skills are sketchy. I'm a pretty good framer, but it's a lot of hard work. But what I'm really good at is knowing how to build and knowing the order in which things are supposed to be built. And so I manage the projects. I've done a really good job of surrounding myself with the people who have the skills that I don't have to build the buildings that I need to build. But this is a tool that I use every single day, literally every single day. It's just a tape measure. What's interesting about a tape measure is you just cannot build a building without this tool. But this tool is never going to actually help you physically build the building. Like, it makes a really bad hammer. Just doesn't do a good job. It's not going to cut anything. It's a really bad tool when it comes to building. Yet at the same time, you can't build a building without it. What's interesting about a tape measure is, for the most part, you only use about the first 12 feet of a tape measure, because most of the building material in America is 12 feet long. Some things are 16, but those are the extra special items. What's kind of funny is I have a tape measure that goes up to 35 feet. I don't know why. I don't know why I choose to carry around a 35-foot tape measure when really a 12-foot tape measure would probably do just fine. I'm an overachiever, I guess. But tonight I want you to think about this tape measure for a minute. Because this tape measure, while it doesn't build anything, while it can't actually construct a building, what it does is it allows you to know what you need. So if you have a gap in a floor and you need to cut a piece of wood to fill that, you can take this tape measure. You can measure it out. And you can go, oh, this gap is 48 inches long. But what's interesting is that's all that this tape measure can do. Its job from that point is done. It has told you what you need, but it can't provide it. It can't give it to you. It can't actually accomplish the mission of doing anything more than telling you what you need. Because all it does is allows you to know something. The information. This tool becomes really useful whenever you have a source of material that you could use it on. Because now you know, I got this problem over here that needs to be fixed. I know that it's 48 inches of need, but I still need a source. For me, prayer is a lot like this. It gives me a moment to reflect on everything going on in my life. A lot of the time, my problems are this big. Other times, I feel like they are this big. It's getting to the point where it's going to really hurt when it goes back in. You see, what I think that Jesus is trying to tell you in this story is sometimes you might think you know what you need. You might think, you could look at a hole in the floor and go, hey, I need to fill that. Like, I need to fix that hole. Yeah, you probably do. But until you take the time to actually consult something, to measure it out, to know what you actually need, you're just going to continue to look at a hole in the floor. Some of you are dealing with spiritual problems and you're just looking at them, just hoping that they go away. Just like, yeah, maybe if I hide long enough, this thing will leave me alone. Maybe if I just lay low long enough, people will like me. People will forget about the mistakes that I've made. Maybe if I just could disappear, just hide in the hole for long enough time, then it'll just magically go away. But that's not what happens. One of my issues that I have with the story that I read you tonight is that that Mark doesn't record the prayer that Jesus prayed. Anybody else notice that? Like the disciples straight up look at Jesus and say, how'd you cast that demon out? And Jesus straight up answers them and says, oh, that one only comes out in prayer. But the problem is there wasn't a prayer. Do you know how infuriating that is? That's like somebody telling you, like where do I get water? Oh, the water fountain. Where? Like where's the water fountain? Right, like that's the like it's this mentality of like, oh, I could tell you how to do something, but if you don't have the remainder of the information, then you can't actually do it. That's what prayer accesses for you guys. And tonight, like there's a part of me that's so badly wanted to come in here and just be like, hey guys, I'm going to teach you about prayer. Everybody get on your knees. Let's like practice these different postures of prayer. Like no, like don't actually do that because it's irrelevant right now. There are postures of prayer, and they're important. But what I want you to first recognize is what we talked about at the beginning. Being for each other. Being for each other. Being for each other. This idea that your culture wants to it wants to go against. The culture wants you to only be for yourself. Jesus wants you to be for each other. And here we are in this moment of prayer. This moment where this boy needs healing, and Jesus says the only way that this demon is cast out by prayer, but the prayer's not recorded. And there's a reason the prayer's not recorded, is Jesus doesn't want the disciples to start praying exactly how he prays. He does this once. It's a prayer that everybody says, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come. Yeah, you know it too, right? How many of y'all have prayed that prayer? Raise your hand. How many of y'all have any idea what that prayer actually means? Yeah, like, you know why? Because it's words. That's like, how many of y'all start your prayers the same way every time? How many of you start your prayers, dear God? Why? Why do we do that? Well, we're not writing God a letter. How many of you guys end your prayers the same way? Like some of it, we have scripted our prayers out. Dear God, thank you for this day. No, there's some days I want to be like, dear God, this day sucked. And that's truth. And you know what? God could handle it. I don't think that we take the time to pray. Authentically pray. I don't think that we take the time to really approach God and say, hey, God, I'm dealing with something that's actually an evil problem. We don't do it because it's weird. I mean, it is. But tonight, that's what I want you to try. Tonight, we're going to give you a minute to try something that maybe none of you have ever done before. Number one, to recognize that you have a tool that's at your disposal. That if allowed, it may open up your eyes to what you need. But remember, the tool isn't going to provide what you need. Only God can. Tonight, I want you to try to authentically pray. But listen to me. I don't want you to use words. I want you to use your heart. Oh, it's such a Jesus answer. What does it even mean, Pastor? My prayer's going to sound like this. Dum-dum, 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 dum-dum. Maybe it needs to. How many of y'all are guilty of falling asleep during your prayers? It's okay. I had a professor one time tell me that maybe you fall asleep in your prayers because you need rest and God's finally going to grant it to you. Maybe. So tonight I want to ask you to do something, and I can't tell you how to do it because Jesus didn't tell me, but he showed me. He showed me that if I pray, spirits can be conquered. Because you see, it's not about the prayer. It's not about the words. It's not about the posture. It's not about the lighting. It's about the one you pray to. You can pray in a way that's authentic, it's unashamed. It could even be the prayer of the man. I believe. Help me in my unbelief. I don't know what your prayer needs to be tonight, but I know that you have one. I know that you have something that you need to be asking God about, that you need to be trying to figure out. You got this thing, and it's in the way. You don't know how to fix it. You don't actually even know how big it is or how small it is, how deep it is. You just know it's there. And it shows up at the moments when you're finally trying to accomplish something. So tonight, I want you to take a minute to just close your eyes and bow your head. If you're sitting around people who are going to distract you, then move. Like, that's welcome. There's a lot of availability in other areas of the room. And as you just sit here, I want you to listen. And if you can, just be super, super still. Just really, really quiet. And for a moment, open yourself up and allow God to speak to you. In the Bible, Paul confesses that he has a thorn in his flesh. We don't know what it is, but it's something that he struggled with for a long time. And Paul tells the church in Corinth that he asked God to take it away 3 different times. And God didn't do it. So Paul says that he embraced it. It became this part of him, part of his ministry. And he used it to relate to people. Because even Paul, the greatest pastor of all times, had problems. Tonight, some of you will pray a prayer. God may or may not do anything about it. And tonight, you can leave. You can think to yourself, well, I tried. But obviously, God doesn't care. But really, you might have, for the first time, taken a measurement of what you're actually up against. And maybe you walk away from that conversation with God with a little bit more information than you went into it with. It might not be soft, but you're reminded that you're not alone. The disciples asked, why couldn't we cast out that spirit? I wonder if they even took the time to pray before they decided to step into battle. I wonder if they even knew what they were up against. If they ever measured it. I love you guys too much. Even though I may not know some of you, I love you guys too much to send you into a fight, a war that you will never be able to win, at least alone. And I thank God that you're here tonight because you attend a church that loves you way too much to send you into battle alone. And so I want to ask all the small group leaders if y'all will come up to the front. If you have a group that you will be taking out here in a minute. And tonight, I didn't prepare any questions. I wasn't asked to. Maybe you've been sitting there tonight thinking of your own way to overachieve. But I'm going to change your small group question, so just be ready. Because yeah, Sheldon, I went longer than my allotted time. You knew it was going to happen anyway. Because tonight, some of y'all are going to hate this. But tonight, I want to challenge you as the students. I want to challenge you as the students to prepare to walk out of this place in a different way than you typically do. Yes, I know that after small group time, you probably always say, do we have any prayer requests? Can we pray for anything? And all of y'all go around the room and you say, nope, because I am the greatest person on the face of the planet and I have 0 problems. But that's not true. And every single one of these adult-ish people that are in front with me, if they're honest with you tonight, they would say that they too are in the middle of some sort of conflict, some sort of war. It might not be big, but it's still there. And so adults, what I would ask of you tonight is to share some of that. I know you're not prepared. You're like, oh shoot, I better make something up. No. Just be real. Real quickly, I'll tell you mine. I'm planting a church in Celina, Texas. That's not the thorn of my flesh. The thorn of my flesh is pride. Because 4 weeks ago, I hosted an interest meeting. And no one showed up. So my wife and I went home. Talked about it for a minute. We're like, this project management gig's pretty fun. I make pretty good money at it. I'm good at it. Celina doesn't need another church. We'll just do this instead. I thought about quitting. I woke up the next morning, went to work. On my drive, I had to get gas, and while I was getting gas, this lady across the pump from me comes up to me and says, hey, I've seen you before. And I said, no, ma'am, I don't know you. She's like, no, I've seen you on your church advertisement. We've been meaning to come, we just can't. And I looked at her, and y'all, I am not joking. I said, really? Because the night before, we prayed. It's unfortunate that it took nobody to show up for me to pray for a church plant that I claim that I've devoted my life to. These adults that stand before you tonight, They can tell you stories of the times that they thought they needed to quit. They could tell you stories tonight of the times that they thought that they were raising heathen kids, that they thought that their marriages were coming to an end, that they thought that the job, the career that they lost was going to ruin them. They could tell you stories of broken areas in their lives. And if they decide to, I hope that you listen. Because we're better together than we'll ever be alone. And I hope that tonight that you're honest with each other. And you talk about the stories and the battles that you're within. And when it's all said and done, when you're done talking, then I really do hope that together you can authentically pray. Not a prayer of, oh God, help me with this test, not that. But a prayer of, God, I need you in ways that I'm not even sure of yet. So tonight, I'd prefer that you not ask questions of each other. I'd prefer that you seek the one who already has the answer. So if you go up to your leaders now, and they'll take you to this place where together we'll prepare for battle. You all have a good night. God bless.